Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So I'm going to unpick this story about this blockchain trading card game called Parallel, which has raised actually $50 million from a pretty well-known crypto VC called Paradigm, and it's done it at a $500 million valuation. So some big numbers in there. And I think while I don't think anything in this story is particularly wrong, I think I think it does show some of the sort of interesting sort of velocity that the sector sort of currently has. So, and this is just a story from Venture Crunch, TechCrunch even, sorry. So this is just going through the stuff about Parallel. We'll go and have a look at the website. But anyway, they've announced they've raised $50 million at $500 million valuation. This is from Paradigm. They've had some previous investors. None of these are particularly well known. In fact, I've never heard of any of those. So what's interesting, I guess, about Parallel is it's sort of at the moment a sort of a very on-chain sort of project. So basically, they're minting these NFTs, and you're going to have to kind of have a sort of own a collection of those NFTs in order to play the game. Of course, this being sort of blockchain, the game is not. It's not quite clear what stage of development the game is in. It may be in some sort of, I guess, some sort of prototype stage. It may be nothing at all. A bit hard to judge. And so we can just see this is, as we are in this sort of stage at the moment with blockchain games, this is a fairly bullish, if not overly aggressive sort of positioning. Clearly from the game developers, who obviously feel they can fulfill the valuation, and also from the VCs, who clearly have given $50 million. On the assumption that this project is worth $500 million. So we are starting to see projects be worth more than $1 billion. So Animoca Brands, Dapper Labs, SoRare, Sky Mavis, company behind Axie Infinity. So they've been raising sort of bigger sums of money on these $1 billion valuations, but they have sort of users and they have been operating for a while. In the case of Dapper Labs, they're operating entire blockchain. So this is fairly eye-watering sort of valuation. It looks a really sort of cool game. So these are sort of some of the cards. One of them's already sold for $1 million. As ever with blockchain sort of NFT projects without any functionality at the moment, the sort of the things sort of rise and fall. So they did in the first month over $100 million of transactional volume, down to dropped 90% the next month. So the other interesting thing is Parallel takes 10% on any NFT sales. That's quite high, so that's more than double what Axie Infinity takes. Axie Infinity takes 4.25% on any transaction, so 10%, pretty big chunk. Traditionally, that's kind of what an art creator would expect to take if people were selling their art. Obviously, with art, you tend not to have multiple transactions, whereas in a game, you might have quite a lot of transactions because people are trying to build out decks and people are experimenting, so there's maybe quite a bit more trading. So I guess that could be one of the sort of headline reasons why it has this very big valuation, because it's sort of proven that it can do some high-end NFT sales, and it's already proven it's got sort of revenue flow, because if you had $100 million of transactions and you're taking 10%, then that's already sort of quite a big chunk. Obviously, that's not enough to be $500 million, but we can kind of start to see how this valuation might be put together. So let's quickly have a look at some of the cards. So this is on OpenSea. We can see 306 items, 25,000 wallets, 0.015 floor price. Obviously, the point of this is it's not very clear, because the game hasn't been sort of fleshed out yet. It's not very clear how many of these cards you might need to have like a actual playable hand. So you don't just own one of these; you have to own multiple ones. And you can kind of see here, this says Earthen, this says Algon Core, and there are 5 different tribes, I suppose they're called. They're actually called Parallel, so they're going to be fighting these 5 different sort of types of human, and you're going to need your set needs to be, if you're playing as Earthen, you have to have all your cards have to be Earthen cards. You can't kind of mix and match between the different sort of parallel tribes. And as ever, the price starts to go up quite quickly, depending on sort of what you the rarity and what the thing looks like, and some idea, I suppose, of how these things might actually work in terms of gameplay. So there is sort of trading activity here, and we can see this one's very cheap, and then quite quickly they go up to hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, I suppose. Let's have a look at the website. Website's super cool, as we'd expect. This is all running on Ethereum as well, so we have this clearly sort of this high gas price sort of scenario. Presumably when the game works, it won't be running on Ethereum, or Ethereum 2 might be out then, so maybe it will, who knows. But we can kind of see here, very sort of high-end sort of thing. It's a sci-fi game, so we can sort of There's a whole bit about the story, which is obviously just sort of words. The parallels, these are the different types of humans. So there's sort of earthen, and there's different, obviously, as human sort of evolution changes, I suppose. You have these different sort of types of human beings fighting. We have this is kind of looking at some of the cards. So this is different sort of types. There's some universal cards. There's these shroud cards. These sort of weird. I mean, all fairly weird, I suppose. We have some ideas. I think these are sort of concept art. So these not necessarily game sort of characters. There's quite a lot of unknowns about this sort of thing, really. These are, it is what it is. So it is interesting, I suppose, that there's so sort of little understood. And maybe that's no different from any other sort of VC investment fund where any funding where you have a sort of team and you're really relying on the team's background, and sort of the expectation is the product. Maybe the product that is the big winning product isn't this one. Maybe it's sort of something else and a different sort of game based on the sort of the lore and the sort of experience in the community. But anyway, this is what we've got at the moment. Resources, so we have sort of FAQ here. So here we go. What do you need to play the cards? You'll need a minimum set of cards to compose a playable deck of cards. It doesn't really say how many of those you have. So I'm not going to go into all this. And then also we have sort of paradigm. So worth having a quick look at these guys. So these are the guys who've given them $50 million. We can see, they're sort of a typical sort of crypto VC company. Sort of know what they're doing in terms of have some pretty famous people here. So this guy here is really well known as a sort of a white hat hacker. Georgios is also pretty well known. He used to work for Loom Network back in the day. He's done a lot of work on Ethereum infrastructure. So a pretty good team from that point of view. If we look at their portfolio up to date, there's pretty good investment. Interestingly, pretty much everything to date is sort of DeFi. So a lot of this is sort of DeFi and sort of infrastructure. So some of these well-known things: Argent, Coinbase, obviously, Compound, Cosmos as a blockchain, DYDX, sort of a trading futures trading platform. Fireblocks, pretty well-known sort of infrastructure piece. What else we got? FTX. So basically, they've done these investments early on. Maker made a ton of money. I would think hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more. Synthetic, probably billions of dollars. They've made Uniswap here. So they got sort of tons of money to be messing around with. So I think that's sort of for me the biggest sort of part of this pie is, if that's the right term, the Paradigm basically have generated tons of money as a VC company, and so they're prepared to make sort of big bets. And clearly, it seems like in this round they were the only investor. So basically, they were like, we think this is so good, we're gonna take the entire sort of the bet on here. So in a sense, it's a big bet, but it's not necessarily a big bet for Paradigm because they've got tons of money. Not to say they would make this bet if they didn't think it was going to do really well for them, but they're happy to sort of make this bet, which other companies sort of, potentially, or very few companies will be able to make that sort of investments in such an early stage company. And I guess this is what I'm sort of coming to the conclusion of is at the moment, if you are a sort of a team that can sort of prove blockchain sort of chops, that you have a gaming team who've been around for a while, that you have a sort of a good concept, in this case sort of quite a wacky concept, more an NFT concept than a game concept at the moment, because all we have is these very pretty cards, but not very clear how a game is sort of functioned or fashioned out of them. You can generate a ton of investment. Obviously, now the pressure comes because you've raised $50 million, which probably you're not going to spend. It'll take you a number of years to sort of spend that. You don't necessarily need big teams to make these sort of games, but then the sort of pressure comes on board, and that's sort of, I guess, the other side of the coin. When it's very easy to raise these fairly large sums of money, and even inexperienced teams can raise a few $1 million fairly easily. I think at the moment there seems to be a lot of appetite for that. But actually then having the sort of chops to pull that off, and clearly we will see a lot of these projects fail. I'm not saying Parallel is going to fail, but clearly we're going to see a lot of these projects either fail in terms of not going to release a product, or the quality of the product they release is not sufficiently good, or the market has moved on, and actually people don't want to play these sort of NFT type games because everyone's playing Call of Duty online or on chain, something like that. So wait and see. I think it's interesting. I think also it's interesting not to just see these big numbers and just say, oh, they're crazy numbers, the whole market's a bubble. You know, I think clearly there is some elements of bubble in there, and some valuations look a bit weird. This one looks a bit weird. I think if you dig into it a little bit, you can kind of see vaguely sort of where it came from. But not to say this is a bad deal. I think that sort of, the people to a degree know what they're doing, but sometimes people who know what they're doing also make bad deals. So I'm not commenting either way. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. This is Blockchain Gaming World, keeping our eyes on what's going on in this crazy world. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching. See you again soon.